And now you are trying to figure out, do we want to become nomadic all around the world? A test trip is really going to help you narrow down how you like to travel, where you want to travel, and if this lifestyle is even something that you want. It's also going to help you figure out what you need to do to make this lifestyle work best for your family. Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here. Well, hi there, and welcome back to those who have listened before, and welcome if this is your first episode. I'm really glad and honored that you're taking some time to listen to my voice and my opinions. So thank you for that. My name is Marissa, and I get to be your host on Digital Nomad Family Podcast. I am from Family of Dashes, and that is basically my entire family of 6. Family of Dashes is how we document what we do, where we go, how we do it, and so many things. And the best way to follow along with Family of Dashes is on Instagram. So if you're curious about who I am and what my family is like and does, the best way to get a big window into our world is Instagram. And we have a lot of fun over there. So I know I say a lot. I'm excited about the episode, but that's because I really enjoy talking about things related to being a digital nomad family. And today is a really cool episode. And if this is your first time listening, I think it's going to be a good one. If you are still becoming a digital nomad family, if you're maybe even not 100% sure if this lifestyle is best for you and your family, maybe you think it is, but you have some questions, because today I'm going to be talking about taking a test trip. And I love test trips. One of my husband, Eric, one of his favorite sayings, if you will, in leadership is a bullet before a cannonball. And where this comes from is long, long, long ago when they were still shooting cannons off of ships. Cannon balls were very expensive because they were made of very heavy material, and you had to ration them well because you couldn't just be shooting a cannonball and missing the enemy's boat willy-nilly, right? And so what they would do is they would shoot a bullet, they would shoot a gun, and that is how they would know how to aim the cannons. And so the bullet was a way to test something, to know, hey, are we headed in the right direction? And then they could dial their cannons into what that bullet told them. And so we say that a lot in our family, a bullet before a cannonball. And this is 100% what a test trip is. It is to test out if you even want to be a digital nomad family. And so we're gonna get into that today. Before we do, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, Divi Agency Coach. Divi Agency Coach is a business that helps people who have either a web design or a digital marketing agency. They help them see what is the best next step for them and how to get there. So it's a coaching agency, and it is run by my husband, Eric. So thank you, Eric, for sponsoring this episode today. And it's a really great opportunity for people who do have some type of either web design or online digital marketing, specifically those two areas, grow their business to the next level. Because Eric does a really great job of saying, here's where you are in your business, and here is where you hope to get to. So what is the next natural step? And he really takes into account your personality, where you are in life, how your business is doing. And I think that Divi Agency Coach really helps people get to the next level in their business. So if you are looking for a way to maybe bump your business up, I would highly suggest checking them out. So thank you, Divi Agency Coach, for today's sponsorship. So what is a test trip? And it's not a super popular idea, but I think it's getting more popular, and it's one I am all about. And basically, a test trip is a trip that you take for a longer amount of time to test and see if you enjoy being out of your passport country, right? Because maybe you've gone on vacation before, maybe you've done stints outside of the country, but maybe nothing longer than 2 weeks. And now you are trying to figure out, do we want to become nomadic all around the world? A test trip is really going to help you narrow down how you like to travel, where you want to travel, and if this lifestyle is even something that you want. It's also going to help you figure out what you need to do to make this lifestyle work best for your family. Now, there is a lot to talk about when it comes to a test trip. So the way that my brain kind of went with this is we're going to use the who, what, when, where, and why method. So that sounds good? Yeah? Great. So let's just start at the top, and we're just going to work down, starting with who. Who should go on a test trip? I personally think unless you are the type of person that you know this lifestyle is going to work for you, you have zero worries, you're going to blaze the trail and go. You don't need to go on a test trip. This is not for you. But if you do have some concerns, if you do have some questions, and you want to see the best way to move forward in this lifestyle, this is for you. And everyone who is going to be traveling with you should go on the test trip. So I would not recommend if, let's say, mom and the kids can go on a test trip, but dad can't. I would not say that that is a true test trip, because you're not actually testing the waters for your entire family. So everyone that is going to be living with you as you move around the globe should go on the test trip. And I think that something to think about in this who section when you are beginning to plan this trip is our family does not have this who, but a lot of families do have this who, and it's a pet. And figuring out the pet. Does the dog or the cat or the guinea pig or the hamster, whatever the pet is, what happens with the pet? Now, I do know that some digital nomad families travel with a pet. It's not common, but it can be done. It definitely adds a layer of expense, and it can definitely add a layer of paperwork and sorting things out logistically, because sometimes animals have to be quarantined in certain countries. You have to make sure that they stay up to date on all their vaccines. So I'm not saying don't take the pet. I'm saying just really think this is a who in our family that we need to figure out what's happening with the pet. And I think for the test trip, it can be maybe a good idea to talk to a family member or a friend to watch the animal and care for them while you're gone if you're not taking them with you. If you have just a really intense feeling of, we are going to move forward with this lifestyle. That's kind of how we were. We knew when we left for our test trip that unless things went horrible, we were headed this way. And if you are kind of in that same boat as we were, then maybe beginning the conversation of, hey, the puppy, the kitty cat, the fish, the turtle, whatever animal you guys love, we're going to have to transition them to a new family. And I think starting that conversation while the kids are away from the animal can be helpful, because when you're sitting there holding your kitten, the idea of getting rid of the kitten is so awful. But when you are in a different country and you're living life without the kitty cat, talking about saying goodbye to the kitty cat in your family and allowing another family to love this animal, it feels a little bit better, I think, for the kids. So, and it gives them that time to emotionally get ready to say goodbye and everything. So that's definitely a who that you might need to figure out in your family. There's also really great pet sitting companies that you can look into if you don't have any friends or family that are going to watch the animal while you're gone. And I like I said, we don't have an animal, so I haven't walked this road, but I do know that there are a lot of options, especially when we're talking about the test trip, because we are talking about a shorter amount of time. And so it will be possible to have someone, I think, watch your animal and care for them while you're away. And then when you come back to your passport country, you can then figure out now what. Maybe the person that was caring for the animal fell absolutely head over heels in love and wants to keep the animal in their family. Or maybe they're like, no, it's time for us to say goodbye, and you can find a new family to love and care for this pet. So that is definitely something that you want to think about, though, if you have that who in your family. The next W, they're not all, well, they are all W's. Look at that. The next W would be what. And I've changed this because this whole episode is about what a test trip is, right? So we can't really just talk in the what about what a test trip is. So we're going to alter this what to more of a packing list question. What goes with you and what stays? Okay? That's the what for this on a test trip. And I would say take only the essentials, because you really want to try to think about this as a true test trip for when you're a nomadic family. And so much of the stuff that we think we need to take, we can actually buy in another country. Now, there are certain things that you are going to want to take. You are going to want to take some toothpaste, right? You are going to want to take some, if you have a special type of body wash that you maybe need to use for dry skin or something, you want to make sure that you have enough of that. There are certain things that you want to make sure you take. But then there's other things that I would say, don't stress about that. You can buy that in another country. Things like feminine hygiene products. If you have girls that are having to use those, it's okay to take some, but you don't have to take 3 months worth, because whatever country you're in, they will have feminine hygiene products there. So take some, but don't feel like, oh my goodness, I have to take enough deodorant for 3 months. I have to take enough toothpaste. I have to take enough shampoo. Don't pack like that, I would suggest, because you really do want to view this as, how are we going to be moving around and living when we are a full-time digital nomad family? And so you really only want to take what I would consider is the essentials. And another reason you don't want to take too much stuff is you really don't want to have each person in your family with 2 huge suitcases, right? That is a pain in the butt, I promise you. Moving from the airport to your Airbnb with so much luggage can be hard. If you're taking trains anywhere, that can be hard, getting in and out of a taxi. So you do want to think about how much stuff each person is taking, with the understanding that you can buy stuff there. Now, there are some important items to take. I will say this, and I think for the most part, as you are researching the country you're going to go to, you'll kind of naturally gravitate to getting those things, like an outlet adapter if you're going to a different country. Or if you're going to a place where you can't drink the water straight from the tap, maybe consider getting a filter for your kitchen sink. So then that way you're not having to buy bottles and bottles of water. That's what we've done for Peru, because it's not recommended for our bodies to drink the water straight from the tap, especially at first. Maybe by the end of our time there, we'll be able to drink the water, but at first you want to be a little more cautious. And so we're taking a filter that we can just put straight on our kitchen sink. And so maybe some of those things you want to think about. But I like I said, I feel like you're going to naturally gravitate to thinking about those kind of things. So some other things I'd suggest taking that maybe you don't think about are some board games or card games for days where the weather's not good, or maybe you played the tourist in whatever city you're taking your test trip in for the past 3 days, and now everyone is just tired. But you also don't want to just do never-ending tablet time, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, if they don't get off of these things and just put the device down, I'm going to lose my mind. Please don't say I'm the only mom that feels like that. Please, please, please. And so to have a couple options of games can be really nice. When we did our test trip, we actually took too many games, and we didn't play them a lot. And so now as we pack for Lima, we're challenging each other of, okay, we are going to take some games because it is nice to have those, but do we need as many? And so we did learn from our test trip with the games, but it really is nice to have them. And another thing that I would consider thinking about is people's hobbies. In our family, Eric really likes to paint and Riley likes to do art as well. And so they both took things to do art. And that was nice. It was nice for them to have their hobby with them. So I would figure out a way to keep that going. Now, some things are going to be harder than others. I understand that, right? Like a guitar isn't that difficult to travel with. I mean, I think every time I've been in an airport, I've seen someone with a guitar. So as long as you have a nice, sturdy, hard guitar case, it's going to be okay. But a tuba, that might be a little more challenging, right? So I do think that there is a difference in whatever their hobby is. So something I would suggest for this idea of to keep hobbies going is either maybe suggest that the kid or person learns a smaller instrument, like, hey, would you be open to learning the flute? Or, I don't know, I'm not an instrument music person, but a smaller type instrument. And then another thing you can do, which is, it sounds like, well, how am I going to do that? But I promise you, once you get comfortable with this lifestyle, this will sound like, oh yeah, I can do that, is find a music instrument store in the city that you're hanging out in and rent something from there. When we were in Istanbul, there was an entire street lined with music stores. And as you get to know the locals and figure things out, it's actually pretty easy to find a place like that where you can say, hey, my kid really loves to play the drum, but we didn't bring a drum because it's a drum. So we left it at home, right? I have a feeling in most major cities, now I'm talking like major cities, okay, like larger places, not small suburbs. But if you're in a larger city, I would look for a place to rent an instrument for your kid. And that way they can kind of keep that going. And then I would say another thing that I would really think about is the clothing that you take. And I know for us, I created capsule wardrobes for all 6 of us. And if you don't know what a capsule wardrobe is, that's okay. It just means all the stuff matches with each other. So here in America, especially my girls, they have some shirts and some pants that only match with about one other thing in their closet. And if both of those things have to be clean at the same time, you know what I'm saying? Like that shirt has to go with that skirt or those pants or those shorts or whatever. It's the only thing that makes it work. And those are not the kind of clothes I would suggest taking on a test trip or even when you begin life as a digital nomad family, because you only have so much space, right? And so if you have a pair of pants and they only work with one shirt, but that shirt can work with all your pants, now you've kind of limited yourself with those other pair of pants and you're kind of carrying them when you could be carrying another pair of pants that work with a bunch of stuff. So I would definitely suggest putting together a capsule wardrobe for your kids, and really consider the weather that you're going to be living in when you're in your test city. A couple things that I made sure we had in our capsule wardrobe is quick drying clothing, which for boys is really easy. You get some athletic shorts and athletic shirts, pretty simple. It can be a little more challenging for girls, but it is possible. And I cannot speak highly enough about Darn Tough socks and Exofficio underwear. And I'm not like connected to them in any way. Like I don't get any money from them. They don't even know who I am. But everyone in my family has Darn Tough socks, and everyone will have Exofficio underwear. 3 of us have Exofficio currently, and we're going to be getting the others. They are amazing. Darn Tough socks are hands down just the best socks. They are made in Vermont, and the quality is just so fantastic, and they're so comfortable, and you can easily wear these socks. My kids have worn them for 3 days, and they do not stink. It's amazing. And when you wash them, let's say you're in a place where you have to go to the laundromat and you're like, oh no, so-and-so's out of socks. You can just wash them in the sink with a little bit of even just hand soap or body wash, dry them. They're quick dry, so they're going to be dry. Like if you wash them at night, they'll be dry the next morning. They're amazing. And then Exofficio underwear is easily the best underwear in the world. And it's quick dry, but it also is antimicrobial. So let's say on those really long travel days where your kids can't get showers, and 3 of my kids are in that entering puberty, teenage body time where they do need to get a shower every day. But thankfully, because of Exofficio underwear, if they miss a shower because of a long shower or a long travel day, or we've just been going so much that it's like, hey mom, I really need to get a shower today. These underwear are amazing because 1, they're not going to stink like maybe cotton underwear does. And if the kids do need to wash up some underwear, then these underwear dry so quickly. I'm talking just hours. If you wash them, roll them up in a towel, squeeze out all the excess water, and then maybe hang them. If you can hang them in the sun, then, you're looking at just hours until they're dry, and they are just so, so fantastic. So I'm going to leave a link to Darn Tough and Exofficio in the show notes. And if you need socks and underwear for your capsule wardrobe, you cannot go wrong with these 2 brands. Like I said, I'm not connected to them. I just really, really like them. And then a couple other things in this what category is, what do you need to work as far as your job goes? So for us, Eric actually tested setting up an office at our dining room table, and he worked from there to make sure that he had everything he needed to. Now, maybe you just need a computer or an iPad or something like that. Eric makes videos and he does several other things. So his setup is a little more, just a little different than just having a computer. But if you need anything like that, make sure you have it, and maybe consider saying, okay, I'm going to set it up here at the kitchen table or at the island or wherever in your house, and I'm going to see if I can make this work. Because you do want to try to pare it down a little bit. And then what do the kids need for school? So for our kids already each had an iPad. And so we got them iPad cases that also have a keyboard in them. And they're called Logitech. I'm pretty sure that's the brand. And they're amazing. Love these. And so that way they could still work on their typing skills, write reports, all that kind of stuff. And it kept their iPad really, really safe. So we got each of them one of those, and we got them a Rocketbook notebook. And what a Rocketbook is it's a notebook that you can write in, and then you can take pictures, and it automatically scans to your device, and you can save it anywhere in the cloud, and then you can erase it. So instead of having to have multiple notebooks for all these different subjects and all these different writing assignments that the kids do for school, they have their Rocketbook, and they just need one. And I'll leave a link in the show notes to Rocketbook as well. We have multiple Rocketbooks in our house. We really, really like them. So that's it for the what. I know it kind of became a packing list, and I hope I didn't bore you too much talking about socks and underwear, but I really like them. So now let's talk about the when. And by when, I mean what time of year are you going and how long are you going to be there? So we took our test trip for a little over 3 months. And we went to Istanbul, Turkey. We were there for 2 months. And then after that, we wanted to kind of test out fast travel. And so we were in Istanbul for 2 months, which is more of a slow travel idea. And then we did fast travel through a little bit of Poland. And so we took we flew to Prague, and we were in Prague for 2 weeks. And then from Prague, we took various trains into Poland, and we traveled around Poland. We were in 3 different cities in Poland for a total of almost 4 weeks. So we had 2 slow months in Turkey and then 6 fast weeks traveling throughout Czech Republic and Poland. And we did this in January to the beginning of April. And the reason we picked this time of year is, one, we had it open. We had no sports. We had nothing going on in our lives as far as major life events. The kids didn't have much going on because sports were in that break zone. And so we knew that we would just be sitting having a pretty boring, I'm not going to lie, like it would have been fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but I know us, and it was wintertime, and I hate the cold. People hate it. So we would have just been inside a lot, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. We knew we had the chance to go. And so this is the part where you have to look at what you can take for your test trip. How long do you need to get ready for the trip, and how long are you going to be gone? And I think that working it into your schedule, unless you're already homeschooling and working from home and doing all that kind of stuff, you might have to wait until summertime so that the kids aren't in school, and maybe you can go to your boss and say, hey, my family is wanting to take this. Is there any ways that I could work remotely for 2 to 3 months? And I know that maybe sounds like, oh my goodness, Marissa, my boss is never going to say yes to that. But you'd be surprised. I actually have heard several people say that they went to their employer and said, hey, I would love to do this. I enjoy working for this company. Is there a way that we can work it out that for the next 2 to 3 months, I am working remotely? And just, something that we like to say in our family is never say someone's no for them. So just see what happens. Just go and see. So that, I think, is important to figure out when you're going to do this test trip. When do we have the time as the parents, and when do the kids have the time as the kids, right? Because for our kids have always been homeschooled. And so we didn't have to worry about taking them out of school, but our kids are in sporting events, especially our oldest son. And Martin had a break in his soccer. And so we said, hey, we have this time here. And I think that something that you might want to figure out as well is, how long do you need to get ready? And I know I kind of passed over that, but if you are going to need some time to save up some money for this, that's totally okay, because you're going to have to figure out ways to afford going on this trip and having life back here in America, right? And I think that can be tricky for people. For us, we were able to talk to our landlord, and we said, hey, we really want to go on this extended trip. We cannot afford to pay full rent here in America and go on this trip. So we totally understand if you would like us to get out of this house. We will. We'll pack everything up. We'll put it in a storage unit. We'll do that. But again, we didn't want to say his no for him. So we went to him and we said, we are totally willing to pay some of the rent. And he said, can you do 50%? And we said, yes, we can. And so we were able to keep our house in Virginia, and we paid 50% of the rent. And we were able to, we shut off the breaker box outside. We turned off the water. And now thankfully, Virginia doesn't get cold. I'm not going to say it doesn't. It does snow here where we are. But it's not like upstate New York, right? Or Maine. So we did winterize, but we weren't super worried about pipes freezing or anything like that. And then we just looked through all of our utility bills and we said, what can we do? Can we put things on hold? With our internet, we were able to put it in vacation mode. So I would suggest, as you are thinking about your when and how are we going to afford this, which is a big question, right? I mean, we're talking about families here. You have kids. Kids are just expensive. They're expensive people. And, we're happy to do it. We love them, but they're expensive. So how are you going to afford traveling and maintaining a house here, potentially in America or whatever your passport country is? And so for us, that's how it worked out. And so if that isn't a route that you can take, then I would say then you're probably going to have to save up some money so that you have it in your savings account so that okay, well, we have our rent paid. It's sitting in the bank right now for the 2 months we're going to be gone, or the 3 months. And so when you're thinking about your how long here, like when are we going? How long are we going to be gone for? Your budget is going to dictate that with your test trip. And so figuring out what you can afford and what you can kind of lower your bills on here in the States, that is going to be really helpful. So look at your budget, say, what can we afford? What can we maybe eliminate? What can we reduce so that we can't afford to go on this test trip? And I would say just reach out to, if you have a landlord, reach out to them. If you own your house, then that is going to be a little tricky. But you could always put it on Airbnb if you live in a place that it would work. I do think that there are options. You could offer your house to someone. Maybe you have a friend or someone who just needs a place to crash, and you can say, hey, you can house sit for us, right? And offer, say you can stay here and have them pay 50% of the mortgage or the rent or whatever. But just get a little creative in how you're going to make it work, because I do feel like if you really want to make this test trip work, and I love test trips. I really think that they're a good idea. And so once you figure out, okay, we're going to have this person stay in our house, they're going to pay 50% of the mortgage, that means we only have to save this much money, then I do think it starts to become more realistic and it can work for you. So that moves us on to the where. And this is the fun part. But remember, this is a test trip, not a vacation, right? So to go, oh man, we're going to go to Hawaii for 2 months. Maybe that's not the best place to go because one, Hawaii is expensive. And so unless you are thinking about staying in expensive places the whole time, then maybe not the best place to go. Two, Hawaii culturally is very different from the mainland United States, but it is still America. And it still feels comfortable. And a part of this is getting out of your comfort zone. So I would say find another country that you can go to. Think about what time zone you need to be in. Do you need to stay in similar time zone of what you're living now? Because that's gonna limit where you can go, but that doesn't mean that there's not amazing places that you can't go. If you are in the continental United States, there are amazing places in Central and South America where you can have a fantastic time for 2 or 3 months and get to know if this is the lifestyle you want. So think about the time zone you want to be in. Think about, for us, it was really important to be in a place where the US dollar would be in our favor. Because that did help us save some money. And so in Istanbul, the US dollar goes very far. And because of that, we were able to live at Not a different level, because it wasn't. We were in actually a much smaller apartment than our house here in the States, but we could go out to eat to a restaurant. We could get takeaway. If we were out and about and the kids wanted a treat, we could very easily get them a treat or something. And that is not how our lifestyle is here in America. And so it was important for us to go to a place where the US dollar would be in our favor. And not only did that give us that freedom to say, hey, we do want to go eat at that restaurant tonight, but it actually helped us save money because we were still paying bills here in the States. We did have our rent we were paying, we had internet, we had electricity, and some of those things we couldn't change, and that's just how it was. And so we knew that we had to be able to afford to pay our American bills, and being in a place with a good exchange rate in our favor definitely helped. And another thing that we wanted to do was pick a place that wasn't an amazing climate. And so Istanbul is very similar to what we would have experienced here in Virginia. It actually snowed several times when we were in Istanbul, which was, the kids loved it. I did not. But it's really easy to get a false sense of, I love this lifestyle, I want to keep doing this, when you are in a tropical environment all the time, because it feels so different. It feels like vacation, right? And so I would say, think about where you're going very carefully, because you don't want to give yourself this false sense of amazing life when, trust me, this is an amazing life. But I do think it's different to go, okay, we're going to go to maybe a cooler place in the wintertime, or we're going to go to this place and have a house and just experience what being a true digital nomad family is versus going on vacation. And there's nothing wrong with going on vacation, but what we're talking about is testing out being a digital nomad family. And so I think another important thing to think about is, once you figure out where you're going to go, you can start figuring out the best places to stay and get there. So if you're like, okay, I know we need to stay in a similar time zone, well, that's going to give you some places, right? Okay, well, I know I want to go to this country. Great. What city do you want to go to? And you can start narrowing it down. So I would start with the big picture with where. Don't just go, oh, well, I've always wanted to go to Vietnam, and then go to Vietnam. Because if you live in anywhere on the Eastern, like if you are on Eastern Standard Time in America, Vietnam is a huge time difference. And unless you are comfortable getting up and starting your workday at about 1 a.m., might not be a great fit for you right now. And so think about these big things. What do we need from the location? And then you can pin down a more accurate location. And then our last one is why. Have I talked long enough today? My goodness, this is a long one. I'll go through this quickly. Why do a test trip? I know that a lot of people are not going to be able to do a test trip, but I do think that if you get creative, you can find a way to make it happen. And I hope that I've given you just little nuggets here and there of ways to get creative to take a test trip. And you may have to work on your budget so you can save up to do this, but I firmly believe it's worth it, because I know for us, taking a test trip helped me and Eric see that this lifestyle does work for our family. And with the kids, they learned to really enjoy being in other places, and they learned that, hey, I actually love this because I'm making friends all around the world and I'm eating lots of good food. And so I know for us that if we would have just jumped straight into this, I think I would have felt overwhelmed at first. I would have maybe questioned, did we make a mistake at that very first road bump? But now, because of the test trip, I know that we can handle the bumps. And I think that a test trip also gives your extended family and friends time to get used to this idea. Now, really quick, I do not believe that we should live our lives trying to please other people and meet their expectations and their standards for our lives. But I do know that when you love people and they love you, you do want to make sure that they understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, that you're not making this huge mistake, and that everything is going to work out okay. And I do think that that is a benefit for our extended loved ones with a test trip. And then another benefit that our test trip gave us was to see if the kids would make friends. And as a family, and this is why I love talking specifically to digital nomad families, we want our kids to flourish, right? We want to know they're going to be okay. And you do question, are my kids going to be able to make friends? And for us, we made it a priority to find an English-speaking church in each city we were in. And it was actually pretty easy to do so in the larger cities, I'm sorry. The larger cities had multiple church options. And our kids instantly got connected with other kids when we were traveling. And so now I see, okay, the kids are going to make these connections. They are going to make friends. They are going to be able to not only experience this world, but make genuine connections. And now that we're back in America, it's so fun because Riley will be playing on her iPad and she'll go, oh, I'm playing with so-and-so. Remember, it's that girl I met in London. Or, oh, I'm playing with so-and-so. It's the friend that I met from my friend in Istanbul, remember? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I just love that. So going on a test trip, I cannot speak highly of it enough. And if you have any questions about a test trip, then I would love to hear your questions and maybe try to help you find a way to make a test trip work for your family. I'll help you brainstorm some ideas. And if you have gone on a test trip, I would love to hear about that as well, because test trips usually have some really great lessons in them. And usually those lessons make us chuckle, right? And so if you have questions, if you want to talk to me about your test trip, please share your thoughts with me on Instagram. If you want to get connected, I am at Family of Dashes, and all things Digital Nomad Family Podcast are over there. And I would love to hear any of your thoughts on this idea of taking a test trip, whether you've done it, whether you want to do it, wherever you fall. And that's going to end it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really am so grateful that you stick around and listen to me talk about these ideas. And I really, really do connecting with you and hearing your thoughts. So thank you so much for that. And I hope that you continue to travel joyfully.